first person. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Chairwoman. So first of all, let me just say that regardless of the news today, the public comment period is incredibly important. And we want to thank all of the speakers for coming in today and providing their thoughts on this process and on these contracts. So essentially what happened today is that there's always been two contracts that were being considered, right? One contract is for a very small number of Metro employees. They are the lieutenants and captains with an LMPD, and there's another contract for sergeants and below that are sworn officers with LMPD. They are now going to split off and actually follow two separate tracks for approval. The lieutenants and captains contract it was announced today that it was approved by the applicable members of the FOP, of the Fraternal Order of Police. So eventually here in the near future, that will get submitted to the Labor and Economic Development Committee, in which the committee will then vote up or down on that contract. I just want to be clear that that vote is strictly an up or down vote. We do not have the legal authority to change any terms or do anything else with the contract other than vote yes or no on it. Once it moves from the committee, it will then go for a full 26-member Metro Council vote. So that is the lieutenant and captain's contract, and that is the path it will follow. The sergeants and below contract had a vote. It was voted down by the FOP, by the applicable members of the union. That simply means that that process has, for all intents and purposes, restarted. Now it is back on the onus is back on both the Fraternal Order of Police, the applicable union, as well as the mayor's office, the administration, who has dedicated contract negotiators and labor team. They must get back together and get to another agreed upon contract that will then come back to the FOP for a vote. And if it receives a majority of the members voting on it, it will then come to council for a vote. So that contract, the sergeants and below contract, will not in the near future come to the Labor and Economic Development Committee for a vote. Just to provide a little context, we also have no idea if it will come back with significant changes. Theoretically, it could come back with very little changes. There's even legally, it could come back with no changes, right? They could come back and vote on the exact same contract at another time. But nonetheless, that contract is going through a process that is back into negotiations between the administration and the applicable union, in this case, the FOP, related to that. And until that is completed and then goes back to the union for a vote, we won't know the final details of that contract. So those are the two tracks that they're following. Again, I would don't want anybody to feel discouraged because the comments you're making are still incredibly important to the process. So thank you for coming. And if I could just editorialize for 1 second, I hope all parties get back to the table ASAP so that we do get an agreement in a relatively short period of time. But that is the process, and I hope that was clear enough, Chairwoman Dorsey, unless there was anything you think I didn't cover there.
It was. Thank you. And thank you for doing that. And for the public, the council has had lots of these conversations to understand what this means. And so I thank Tony for recapping that for the public to understand where we are at in the process. We will continue to have these conversations about process in addition to actual content and context of the various contracts that are happening in the city. I do know that there are other conversations around contracts. So we will be transparent and have those conversations hosted within the Labor and Economic Development Committee. So I want to thank the team for that. I did see Councilman Triplett join as well. That being said, before we get started, does any other member of the committee or council member want to make a statement before we get into the public hearing section? Anyone? All right, Sonya, we are ready to get started. First on the list is Demetrius McDowell. I do ask that as you come to the podium, or if you are in person for the record, If I say your name incorrectly, please state it correctly, just for the record. So Demetrius McDowell.
It's me right here. Just tell me when to begin. Okay, my name is Demetrius McDowell, and I don't really approve of nothing that the fraternity of order of police, because they the biggest unethical group that I know of, and I personally been involved because I was profiled by an officer, and he pretty much made up a lot of lies and took me to trial for 6 years, and that was just 2 years ago, and it was based on the FOP and people like them upholding the unethical things that the police do, and they're the biggest funded gang that I would say that is running around, because I know, me being an ex-gang member, I know what a gang member looks like. So to me, the FOP is just one big gang that follows guidelines that only help officers get away with the things that they do. And the FOP definitely is an enabler of unethical officers, because they're going to right their wrongs every time. They're never going to hold them accountable. And their mission statement basically is what it says: fraternity. It's a commitment to brotherhood. We're going to ride with you right or wrong. So I don't feel like any vote or any type of economics or any type of money that they ask for, I don't feel like that they deserve any of it. And send the vote back. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't care how they come about it. It's because they're the biggest gang, like I said, that's out here. And I know personally that there's guys that use FOP stickers to put on the back of their cars to get away with drug trafficking. So that just lets you know of how much they let people get away with things that are fund them or sponsor them or donate to their cause. I feel like that if till they hold their brotherhood accountable for the things that they do in the community, which is a big reason why a lot of urban community people like myself don't bother with the police, because we know that they're going to get away with their actions based on the FOP helping them out through legal battles or whatever the case may be. I feel like there's too many professionals that are involved in the FOP that definitely donate and sponsor and enable unethical officers to keep doing the things that they do in the community. So I don't feel like they deserve any type of bill, vote, or whatever they're asking for. I'm just against the FOP because I feel like they're a professional, unethical gang that enables unethical officers. They give bad names to good officers, which is the reason why there's no good relationship in the black community or anywhere else that will let us allow us to understand what a good officer goes through, because the FOP defends unethical officers every day. They don't hold them accountable. And like I said, the fraternity order of police is basically just potential police felons to me, because if the right person charged them as they should be charged, they will be held accountable. But being that the FOP does not do it, they don't deserve any type of bill. Send it back. Demetrius McDowell, District 4214.
Thank you, Demetrius. And I am taking notes over here. I'm not as good as my colleague, Councilwoman George, but I am, just so you all know, one thing I wanted to do this time was write a one word that I'm listening to everyone. And Demetrius, I heard you loud and clear, and I heard the one word for me was accountability in what you had to say. So I thank you for that. Nancy Calicante. And Nancy, if I do not say that right,
Thank you. I'm here to say now is the time. Now is the time to be bold, to vote no, and to send it back. I'm asking Metro Council to be bold in your action. Let the mayor and the FOP know that you are representing the people of the city and are saying there is not enough change in these contracts. We continue to hear all you can do is vote up or down. Be bold and vote no to this nominal effort to make the needed changes in these contracts. It is time to vote no. We need to vote no to these contracts which fail to present a serious challenge to offer to the officers' misconduct, corruption, and abuse in the community, which LMPD is supposed to be tasked to serve. Provisions prohibiting layoffs, permitting supervisions without pay only in extraordinary circumstances, and providing officers military gear still remain. Only one citizen complaints will be placed in, only some of them will be placed in their permanent file so that there's no tracking of their records. It's time to send it back. To truly solve the problems of racially disparate policing, use of excessive force, and police misconduct, state law that restricts and delays officer interrogation and provides for Metro to defend and pay damages for officer misconduct must change. These contracts lack clarity on ensuring that all unjustified use of force is a fireable offense. If we're going to demilitarize policing and invest more in deflection programs, mental health experts, and social services for our children and grandchildren, like libraries and pools, these provisions too must change. The process for negotiating these contracts must become more transparent, and the mayor needs to be held accountable for including the community in this process. I'm now going to read to you what the FOP said that Councilman Piaggiatini failed to tell you. The officers and sergeants clearly feel that this proposal would not do enough to stop our constant loss of officers and would not adequately increase Metro's ability to recruit the best talent available to the LMPD. The members listened to their chief, I believe that's Chief Shields, say that the LMPD should be the highest paid police department in the state. This proposed agreement does not accomplish that. They listened to the Metro Council president say that there was more money available to realize their goals. We already gave them a budget of $190+ million. Recently, we keep giving them more and more money. There's money in the capital budget of the mayor for equipment. I say it's time that we say no. We vote no, and we send it back. And I'm here today to ask you to do that. The community needs you to do that.
Thank you, Nancy. And Nancy, the one word I heard for you was around conduct and the accountability around that conduct. So thank you. Thomas Zoller.
Yes. Hello, my name is Thomas Zoller. I live in Southwest Jefferson County. And here's what I'd like to say. I feel we're at a crossroads in this city. Let's pause the incessant criticism of our police. They do a vital job the rest of us won't do and aren't capable of doing. Let's remove some distortion and refocus on the big picture. The function of police is law enforcement, not befriending the criminal. Serious crime, which we're all witnessing, must be confronted. If it isn't, it increases. Confronting and battling crime, while done lawfully, is not always pretty, isn't normally accomplished by passive methods, and may itself sometimes be violent. Although this is unfortunate, it helps prevent you and I from being new victims on the nightly news. If you don't like this reality, be law-abiding. Criminals don't operate by any rule book. If police are continuously hamstrung by a never-ending litany of procedural do's and don'ts, their efforts are unlikely to have much impact on our crime wave. How does this help anyone but the criminal? More officers will leave and recruiting will flounder. Will this create a safer Louisville? Will this create a safer Louisville? Everyone cries, bring the guilty to justice. Unfortunately, there is no magic wand that makes this happen. By the way, does the anonymous tip phone line ever ring? It's high time we get back to appreciating those in law enforcement, recognizing the toll this responsibility takes on them, and encouraging the job they do for us with better benefits and improved public support and cooperation. Ratify the contracts. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you, Thomas. When I heard support and ratify of the contract, and I will use the one word support. Thomas or Lacey Thomas and Sonya, I have Lacey as virtual, but is he there in person? Because I do not see Thomas on the screen.
He should be on the screen now, ma'am, but he has not. Oh, there he is.
Okay, I see.
Hello.
Hey, Thomas. If you would, Thomas, you're not in chambers, so you won't see the 3-minute timer. The clerk will come in and let you know if you do get over your 3 minutes. But just introduce yourself for the record and please proceed. Thank you.
Okay. Greetings, Council Member Dorsey and other council members. My name is Thomas Lacey, and I am a resident of District 4. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here to voice my opinion that you should vote no on the proposed contract. While it contains a few positive aspects, the overall contract is extremely inadequate. With the murder of Rhonda Taylor, the Explorer Scout sex scandal, and the numerous other examples of police misconduct, the new contract must reflect the reality that LMPD has serious issues. An adequate contract must allow for more civilian oversight and should take a stricter stance on police misconduct. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lacey. And I heard your one word. I would be, would be accountability as well. Jeffrey Cavalcante. Jeffrey. Right here. Hello, Jeffrey. If you would just again repeat your name for the record.
Jeffrey Cavalcanti.
And feel free to proceed.
You can go to YouTube right now and watch the video of police officers holding D. Garrett down with one officer on his back, punching D in the face, time again, and time again. Of course, that investigation is still ongoing. Something about needing to talk to the other officers involved. That officer should have been immediately suspended without pay. If the chief didn't invoke Article 17 for that, she is never going to use it, ever. Suspension without pay must be mandatory in the CBA for any use of force. Then the PIU and the chief can take all the time they want with their investigations. How about Article 39? It is disingenuous to put that in the CBA without direction on accountability built in. And claim it is a meaningful reform is a joke. We need to clean house first. I don't want an officer that sends inappropriate images to a fellow officer, then claims not that it was disrespectful or wrong as an LMPD officer to send that image, but instead I sent it to the wrong person. No, thank you. He does not need to volunteer. He needs a new job. Do the math. 1,025 officers times 2 hours times 26 pay periods, that's 53,300 work hours. For that reason alone, you should reject this contract. But it will be okay. You see, LMPD knows how to shake down the Metro Council. They announce cutbacks in traffic enforcement because of manpower. But if you can dip into your neighborhood discretionary funds, they will find officers to work overtime and do traffic stops or lock gates in your district. In fact, just last week they got you to pressure each other to cough up $40,000 for something that should be covered by the GVI program. Perhaps, Councilman Piaggettini, if you let go of some of your NDF money, the response time in your neighborhood or your district will improve. Just how much money does LMPD get a year? I've heard that question over and over, but never the answer. Oh, and by the way, they want $100 million for not being able to drink alcohol while on call. Why is that not addressed in this contract? If they want to be paid like the best police force in the state, then they need to act like the best police force in the state. I need 1 year without a crushing financial settlement on the city. Say her name, Rhonda Taylor.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Again, based on what you said, the word I hear resounding is accountability for actions specifically and outcomes. So thank you. Hannah Truxell. Hannah. And Hannah should be virtual.
Ma'am, she's not in the meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Sonya. Taylor Ucelis. Taylor Ucelis.
Hi, I'm here. You got it
Taylor,
right.
would you say your name for me, correct?
Sure, it's Taylor
And then proceed.
Ucelis. You got it. Thanks. All right, hi. My name's Taylor Ucelis. I'm a lifelong Louisvillian, resident of District 8, and member of the 490 Project. I planned to come to you tonight to tell you to vote no on the Fraternal Order of Police collective bargaining agreement for officers and sergeants. But the rank and file of their membership voted against this contract today, despite the fact that it held the largest pay raise in the department's entire history. The River City FOP put out a statement today that said they voted this contract down because they, quote, expect to be the highest paid police department in the state of Kentucky, as Council President David James had promised them there was money for this allotment, end quote. To this I say, our Metro Council, that's y'all, cannot let the FOP control you or our city by holding out for higher raises and less accountability. If the police want more money, then they need to acquiesce to more accountability in their employment contract. Next, because they voted it down, it will now go back to the mayor for negotiations. New negotiations mean new ground rules. Metro Council has the responsibility to now urge the mayor's office to establish new ground rules that allow community input in these negotiations. This means the mayor should put community members on the negotiating team, let community observers in the room, and let the team have the ability to talk to the press and the public about proposals and negotiations. The police are hired to serve their community, and their community deserves to have a say in what their employment contract includes. Lastly, and most importantly, what many people prepared to say to you tonight was an anticipation of a contract being put to you for a vote that no longer will be. But I implore you to listen to their stories, remember them, and take them to heart. It is extremely difficult for citizens to come and speak with the council. So some of their stories you may not ever hear again, but they are all relevant and will be relevant when you do eventually vote on this contract. The voices of the community are the voices that should guide you. Let tonight be that for you, a guide to what this city wants from its police department and from you, the council we elected.
Thank you, Taylor. And what I heard was really guidance by the community. And so that one word would be community. And thank you for your input. Frank, Frank, I see you. If you would come on, and we are ready. If you would just say your name for the record and then proceed. You do have 3 minutes. So at the 3-minute mark, if you do go over that, the clerk will step in to let you know that we are at the 3-minute mark. I do ask that you refrain. And again, I want to reiterate this. I do ask that you refrain from addressing council members directly. I've always said, as Councilwoman Dorsey, we are here to address systemic issues in the system, but we do not attack people. So I do ask that you refrain from mentioning council members. We are here to address issues and systemic issues moving forward. So thank you for that. Frank, please feel free to proceed. Can't hear you. Madam Clerk, can we wait till we hear Frank before we start his timer?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Can you test for me, Frank?
Me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Perfect.
Madam Clerk, can we restart the timer? Go ahead, Frank. Thank you.
So, my name is Frank Banco, and I'm a resident of District 26 and the Vice President of the Brandeis School of Law ACLU, here in support of Project 490 of the 490 Project's proposed reforms. The time is now. Vote no, send it back. I'm immensely concerned about the over-militarization of our local police force and the massive expenses it's cost us as a city. We have better ways to spend our money. We need to invest in our parks, our libraries, and the general provision of resources to citizenry of our city. I've had too many friends suffer injury and trauma in my city at the hands of LMPD. In fact, I have my own story of interaction with LMPD. I was 16 years old, and mind you, at the time, believing that the police force could be improved by involvement in the teen police program advisory board that they had back in the day. I was 16 years old. I just gotten my driver's license. An officer in an unmarked car ran a red on Bartstown Goldsmith intersection. I honked, thinking this was a normal car, fearing that I was about to hit it, and that, I might not have been seen. The officer proceeded to turn on the lights, pull me over, ask me if I had an effing little problem, you little B word, and just continue on a tirade towards me, a 16-year-old with a hand on a firearm. No reason, clearly not in a rush, as they had enough time to pull over and berate an individual. And I was 16. The truth is that a lot of people in the city are living in a lot of fear and hurt towards the police force. It's not something that deserves to be rewarded, it's something that deserves to be hit with accountability. We don't pay anyone better when they do a worse job. We don't have this kind of treatment for anyone else in the city. If librarians started missing a lot of books and beating up people, trust me, we wouldn't be saying pay librarians more. We have accountability for almost everyone in our city government, except the police. The police are the only group allowed to do a worse job, to scare individuals, to threaten, to bully, and be rewarded for it. The time is now. We've got to vote this back. There's got to be accountability. I cede the remainder of my time.
Thank you, Frank. And I want to address something on behalf of the city. I know you said you were 16, but I do apologize that you had to have that traumatic interaction. No child should have to experience that. So we hear you. Your one word is accountability. And thank you, Frank, for sharing your perspective and your story. Chandra Lee. Chandra Lee. Chandra, would you just say your name again for the record and then please proceed? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Shonda Lee. I take great pride in being able to speak here today on behalf of my community. I lived in District 6, 4, and 2, and I've very seldomly seen any of the council people come out and help us do all the events in the community we do. I've been doing community service since I was 14 years old. For more than 200 days, I've assisted by the community leaders, activists, and organizers to feed the protesters, the homeless, and anybody else that was hungry. I've responded to mental health situations, and I've assisted with housing the homeless. Not at one of those times in 200 days were any of us assisted in any form or fashion from LMPD or Mayor Fisher. We don't need them. Meetings like this are performative at best. Again, thank you for allowing our voices and concerns to be heard today. But do y'all really hear us? This is a form of a pacifier. We are sick and tired of being pacified. Vote no. It bothers me that people who hold these offices are considered city leaders. Maybe y'all are, but y'all leading in the direction of regression, not progression. Y'all looking to increase the levels of officers, meaning hiring more officers. Why do we need more officers when the ones that we have who took an oath to protect and serve are doing the exact opposite? Y'all also talk about the raise bringing trust between the officers and the community. There is no monetary value that would bring that trust between the two. If you really want to try and build that, talk to us community organizers, leaders, and activists. I have a question. Where were the captains, the sergeants, and the lieutenants when Michael Newby, Jeremy Burton, Breonna Taylor, Shelby Gazaway, and Damon I'm not sure his last name, were killed by the police? If I have a little time, I want to talk about two instances that happened to me. My niece will be 6 years old this year. She drowned in a pool in my neighbor's backyard. We called LMPD 911. They dispatched one officer. One officer came for about 2 or 3 hours. But if you ride down the street and somebody's getting pulled over for a traffic stop, there's 8 to 12 cars out there. They sitting out there laughing. in a situation that's not funny. In June of 2009, remember I said that I've been cooking for the protesters for over 200 days. In June of 2009, me and my son was packing up to leave from feeding the protesters. We had been out there for maybe 12 or 13 hours. We was exhausted. There wasn't a parking spot for me to pull into, so our homeless community and our protesters, they always unpack me, and they unpack me when I get there, and they pack me back up at the end of the night. All of a sudden, all I could see is black behind me. I'm thinking, I need glasses. I'm thinking it's just dark. But a few minutes later, I see all these lights flashing. 50 SRT members surrounded my van, put a Bearcat in front of me. They snatched my 12-year-old son out of the van. We'd vote no, send it back.
Chandra, thank you for sharing your story. And thank you for what you've done for this community. The one word I heard from you is compassion. And I will also add accountability to that. I thank you, Chandra, for sharing that story and for what you've done for our community. Kara, Toby. Kara or Kara? And when you get to the station, would you please just say your name for the record?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi. Hello, my name is Kara Toby. I'm a resident of District 16 and a member of the 490 Project. Thank you again for allotting time for the public to speak with you all today regarding these FOP agreements. I'm here to encourage you to vote no and to send back the captain and lieutenant's CBA. Though there were a few changes that were made that were positive, there's just not enough to warrant ratification with such a massive increase in salary. You know, over the past 9 to 10 months or so, the mayor's office continually said to us and to other union organizers, public sector unions, that they want to have all of the contracts that they have with public sector unions to be some sort of standardized, to be followed by the same sort of set of rules. Now, if this is the case, this contract, the captain's and lieutenant's contract, should be sent back so it can be renegotiated next to the officers and sergeants contract, just like the mayor is saying that he wants. You know, they also need to be able to abide by these same accountability standards. You know, when the officers and sergeants CBA is being renegotiated, you know, I forget which council member said earlier, maybe it was council member Piagentini, said that we don't know what is going to come out of that negotiation. Well, I think that's very telling that, and just another example of why this captain and lieutenant's CBA should go back, so they are identical and held to the same standards. You know, having two different contracts just eliminates that accountability and that standardization to happen. And even then, the accountability standards that are there just aren't enough. As you have heard already from these amazing constituents behind me, and will continue to hear today, the contract still allows, the captain's and lieutenant's contract still allows them to operate in an unjust manner and in a vague manner. The new volunteer clause would give zero guidelines or guardrails as to how they could volunteer their time, you know, which is, again, still incredibly troublesome. You know, another thing that someone said earlier today, too, was, well, they need to uphold these laws. Now, that LMPD did not do that earlier this week. The EMW Women's Clinic downtown did call LMPD, and they did not show up at all. So, again, if we're going to try to give them more money and try to say that this is good enough, they're not even showing up to do their jobs when they are being called, when they are needed to protect and serve their citizens, all citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. I heard standardization, but my one word I would choose for you, again, is accountability. And I'm hearing that overwhelmingly. Anisi Shinault.
Hi, members of the committee, thank you for hearing us. My name is Anisi Shinault. I live in District 17. I made time to come and speak with you today during the middle of the workday because the state of policing in our city is alarming, and I believe that you have the opportunity to use the system as designed to influence it for the better. On the topic of the FOP contract, I say send it back. This is a picture of my family. I don't know if you can see them, but last year my husband was arrested as a part of the bridge action in demanding accountability for the murder of Breonna Taylor. He was handled according to standard operating procedure by the LMPD, and he ended up in the emergency room in a sling for 2 weeks with a sprained shoulder. Of course, this was at our expense. We have so little faith that anyone in the LMPD would be held accountable that we didn't even bother to report it. And yet the FOP contract erases police misconduct records after 2 years. I say send it back. I sit on the leadership team of the Louisville Showing Up for Racial Justice, and we were asked by BLM last summer to hold trainings for white folks on de-escalation, because they and we know that in pursuit of the peaceful expression of our First Amendment rights, it's the LMPD that are actually the true danger. You put on riot gear, you go looking for a riot. And every time the LMPD incited the peaceful assembly and caused chaos and harm to the community. So I had to train protesters to de-escalate the police. And yet the FOP contract contains provisions for more riot gear for the LMPD. And it does not make clear that excessive use of force is a fireable offense. How is that possible? Send it back. Last month, I canceled my home security service because it calls the LMPD. I genuinely would rather face a criminal into my house than risk that they would show up and arrest or harm my husband thinking he was the intruder because he's the large black man. To this I say, send it back. Finally, a couple months ago, my son and I were reading a book about John Lewis, and he stopped me and reflected about his experiences with the police and what we watched via live stream last summer, and asked if maybe if the police thought he was white, he would be safer. While being proud of and claiming his blackness is so deeply important, after watching the LMPD react to black-led actions with violence and white-led actions with benign neglect, I had to agree with him. What kind of a message does this send to the youth of our community? And yet the FOP contract contains a 9% pay raise, which in the real world is usually reserved for a job well done, not a misguided effort to recruit the good apples into a hopelessly poisoned barrel. To this I say, stand up, use your power, and send it back.
Thank you, Anise. My one word for you would also be accountability. But I also, like the gentleman, want to apologize that you and your family had to experience that. And so please accept our apology, and we will work to make sure that we make this community better together. We hear you. So thank you. Dave Johnson. Dave.
Hello, I am Dave Johnson. I reside in District 22 with law offices of Districts 4 and 5. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm here to ask you to vote no on the proposed FOP contracts for LMPD and send them back for further negotiations. While I acknowledge the latest negotiations resulted in a few positive changes, these agreements still fall short of what's needed to honor the Constitution's guarantee to due process against government actors. I have seen in practice so many cases where LMPD officers use excessive force against citizens, often disproportionately against people of color. Even last year, I was a victim of excessive police force just for observing the demonstrations on my streets, which I have the liberty to do. Excessive force is a breach of the Constitution's guarantee to due process. The problem with the FOP contracts can be thought of as three abstract levels of a home. This home protects the livelihoods of LMPD officers at the expense of due process for citizens. The first floor is the Constitution's guarantee to due process for a government job. The second floor is the Kentucky statutes enhancing the officers' rights to keep their government jobs. And the last floor is the Fraternal Order of Police contracts. These standards of these contracts go even further than the first two levels in protecting LMPD jobs. FOP contracts provide the penthouse for officers at the expense of the same civil rights and liberties of citizens which they're tasked to protect. In fact, it's the whole problem here. LMPD has a 3-story mansion to safe harbor their jobs, which is now towering over the temple of citizens' due process rights. Every time an officer uses excessive force, that force transforms into state-sponsored punishment prior to trial. That's the antithesis of due process for citizens under the Constitution. Effectively, when an officer uses such force, she is unilaterally taking on the extracurricular duties of judge, jury, and even executioner sometimes. Nobody, and certainly no police officer, should have the power to do exactly what the Constitution forbids. I'm here to ask you to please vote no on the proposed CBAs for LMPD and send them back to the drafters to clarify that all unjustified use of force is a fireable offense because it's in direct conflict with the rights and freedoms of the citizens. Officers should not be permitted to keep their jobs after using such force on anyone. The Constitution makes no exceptions to the reasonableness burden placed on law enforcement officers. And I'm requesting you vote no to the proposed CBAs right now. The people cannot wait another 10 years for a little bit of change. And to quote the MC5, it only takes you 5 seconds to decide whether you're going to be part of the problem or whether you're going to be part of the solution. I'm here today as a native citizen, local business owner, local attorney, and active member of this community asking you representatives to stand up for those who stood up for you. Future is now. Send it back.
Thank you, Dave. Your one word I heard regarding use of force would be de-escalation. Thank you, and we hear you. Lindsay Wallace. And would you say your name for the record? For those that I may mispronounce, I just want to make sure I say that in advance. I apologize. Just say it correctly and then proceed. Lindsay.
Yep,
Thank you.
my name is Lindsay Wallace. I'm a resident of District 5. Chief Shields said last week that the investigation into the officer who punched D. Garrett multiple times in the face is ongoing. That's because the language in Article 17, Section 3 is too vague. Unjustified use of force should always be a fireable offense. Why would you not send back any contract that allows police to punch citizens and keep their jobs? Section 17, Article 2 allows officers to be paid while under investigation. You and I, our tax dollars paid for vacation time for the officer who used excessive force caught on video. Why are we paying violent police under investigation for something we all saw them do? Section 17, Article 1 allows for misconduct records to be destroyed after 2 years and are therefore not included in an officer's disciplinary record. When you read the contract, did you wonder why this was? Or better yet, who is served by this policy? Who is protected by it? Violent and corrupt police is the answer to that question. You, council, should be sending back any contract that includes the current language of Section 18, Article 4, so that all supervisory records are retained in a permanent personnel file. It is ludicrous to point out that patterns of misconduct and poor performance cannot be tracked if supervisory records are destroyed. Again, I ask why and who benefits? What other department of metro government or the private sector allows for this? These are basic human resources best practices. To not punch those you serve in the face, to lose your job if you do, to expect disciplinary action to be recorded in your employee file and remain there permanently. This is just base level humanity stuff. Several of you have said that you trust Chief Shields. I find that hard to believe, as she was the chief who presided over the murder of Rayshard Brooks. However, if what you say is true, this contract removes her ability to discipline her employees, which surely you all want. This contract is the result of unchecked FOP power that has been allowed to run rampant in this city over all of us for years, and it's time to try something new. We don't have to get stuck in a crisis of imagination. What we have is a system that causes harm and where harm goes unchecked. But within the community, particularly the communities most directly impacted by violent and corrupt policing, exist ideas about new ways of being human together. How we as a city build what everyone needs to be safe in place of what harms us. The language of this contract is too vague. Without community members on the city negotiation team, without public observers in the room, and the ability to talk to press and the public, it will remain vague and FOP power will go unchecked. If not made clearer, the law requires that we rely on past precedent to enforce officer discipline. And that past precedent got us where? Breonna Taylor was murdered under that precedent. Councilwoman Dorsey, you've apologized on behalf of the city to multiple people this afternoon, and I will say to you what I say to
We're
my
at time.
children. I hear you saying sorry, but with all due respect, it's time to do sorry.
So I thank you for that, and I will address that. I am apologizing, and I do ask that you do not disrespect anyone. And when I apologize, it is for the experiences. I often don't get into this, but I'm going to level set. I am an African-American woman who was born and raised on the west side of the city, who represents a minority constituency. My brother was pulled over at 16 years old and pulled out and put on the street by LMPD. I need you to hear me. We hear you, but we must work together as a city to get this done. And that is not by attacking people. It will be done by attacking the system. So please hear me in that level set. Amira Bryant.
Good afternoon, Amira. I reside in District 9. I'm here to ask you to be bold and to vote no and to send it back. These contracts don't present enough positive change for my friends, family, and fellow citizens of our Black communities. These contracts still fail to present a serious challenge to officer misconduct, corruption, and abuse of the community with which LMPD is tasked with serving. When the public has to fight for incremental changes to police contracts simply to address the most serious police misconduct, time, energy, and expertise that could be spent working on solutions are lost. Be bold, vote no, send it back. We demand changes that should not be considered when the next decade of corruption passes us by. This will progress us towards actual ensurement in public health, safety, trust, reducing wealth inequality, and the highly hopeful future of ending qualified immunity in our city. When it comes to misconduct, I've witnessed and experienced the following: differing charges between Black and white protesters in regards to misdemeanor charges and felony charges while standing and live streaming steps away on the same sidewalk. My friend was punched in the face multiple times by Officer Aaron Ambers during an arrest because he couldn't get off his hands as he was slammed to the ground. I myself have a court case coming up where I'm facing charges that are false, all in order to get myself and many protesters off the street and restrict us from our right to protest. Lastly, the cops who have wrongly killed Rhonda Taylor have not been prosecuted by the law and initially roamed free as murderers who are still supported by police forces. I have some demands, as does the community, and here they are as follows. Stop providing riot gear. Who are our police at war with? Stop erasing police misconduct records. Misconduct complaints are destroyed after 2 years and are not included in an officer's disciplinary record. When complaints are not connected to a particular officer's file, it's difficult to track the misconduct of an officer. Remove suspension without pay pending language, as police who are under investigation should not be given what is essentially paid time off. Clarify to ensure that all unjustified use of force is a fireable offense. Stop requiring the city to pay for officers' misconduct, as our tax dollars should not go towards legal fees, settlements, and etc. for bad officers. I'm here today as a citizen and an active member of this community, asking you to stand up for those who have elected for you to serve as our council representatives. Yesterday was the time for change. Be bold, vote no, send it back. Thank you.
Thank you, Amira. And the one word I heard you say resoundingly was around misconduct and accountability of that. Thank you. Stanley Levinson. And Sonya, that should be virtual. See you on. Stanley, you aren't in chambers, but the clerk will let you know when you reach the 3-minute mark. The floor is yours.
Hey, I'm Stanley Levinson, and I live in the Green Springs Wolf Creek section near Prospect of Louisville. And I would say, regarding the section on complaints by the public, in my opinion, there was not enough detail regarding storage of records, how things should be handled, about how investigations should be conducted, and so on. And there needs to be a lot more detail as to how these things should be handled and how the accountability should be placed. in detail regarding any penalties or whether it was proper conduct at the time. And so I would say that needs to go back and be revised. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Stanley. The one thing I heard you say was really around accountability and enhanced details. I know that's a phrase, but enhanced details around the information so that we have some transparency. And I think I heard someone say vague earlier. So thank you for that, Stanley. Abby Long. Abby Long. Abby, would you say your name for the record? And then please feel free to proceed.
My name is Abby Long. I'm from Shelby Park, District 4. The FOP and mayor are touting changes in the CBA, but they're changes that were already made after the Breonna Taylor settlement. These changes should be the bare minimum. A woman's life was lost last year, and this is the change we have to show for it. Keeping a no layoffs clause, refusing to make excessive force, always a fireable offense, not tracking officer misconduct, destroying complaints to protect bad cops, paying officers under investigation, and now giving officers 9% raises. All this after a year when city budgets were slashed and all other areas were forced to reckon with a revenue shortage. If supervisors don't retain personnel files, how exactly are we going to track patterns of misconduct if their records are being destroyed or not even tracked to begin with? This contract's way of addressing change is not what we had in mind, like volunteering 2 hours per month. At present, officers could go volunteer with the FOP or go harass women at healthcare facilities, which we already know they have done, except this time around, they will get paid for it. Vote no until volunteer hours are more clearly defined. LMPD claims to have had an early warning detection system since 2015. KYCIR found it was inoperable. 15 fatal police shootings happened while this system has laid dormant. The FOP's response is that it could create a paper trail of potential issues. This fraternity has no interest in holding its worst members accountable. When Chief Shields was asked about it last week in the Public Safety Committee meeting, she said the program needs further explanation so that it's not just checking a box. Is she worried that there will be even less officers after this system is activated? Is it because this system would have flagged someone like Bo Gattagard? In his 18 months as an officer, he racked up 10 use of force reports. If he had worked in Lexington where they use an early warning system, he would have been flagged 4 times within 6 months. He also had a habit of forgetting to turn on his body camera. In Breonna's law, officers not using their cameras get issued a written reprimand. Does it sound like this guy cares about being written up? Noncompliance should equal termination. Often it is the only evidence that can absolve a person when it is them versus the police. Vote no to the CBA until the early detection system is shown to be in use. Add a provision to terminate officers that don't use their work-issued body cameras. This council should not wait for someone else to be murdered before acting. How many more Louisvillians would be a casualty of bad policing before you do something about it? Your time to make changes right now. The lives lost because of these protective bargaining agreements should make you sick. This is not the Louisville I want to live in. Oh, I'm sorry. Take a stand. Make it clear to the mayor that the council will not pass CBAs that continue to cater to the FOP. We deserve better. Vote no and send it back. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Abby. We heard you, and I thank you for your emotional delivery. I could feel and hear your passion, so thank you for that. And I heard accountability is your one word, but specifically around misconduct, so I thank you for that.
Sorry.
Thank you. For those that are coming up to the mic, we did put some sanitizer up there. COVID is still a very real fight for us, so we want to make sure everyone is safe. So thank you for that. Celine, would you say your name? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Celinemoutier Maria. I live in the mic was cut off. I live in District 15 and I work for the Louisville Urban League. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on the FOP CBAs. I am here to ask you to be bold, to vote no, and to send it back. I was also here on Thursday, November 5th, 2020, and I remember several council members saying that when this contract came back to them in 2021, they would make a commitment to listen to the community and demand reforms that support transparency, accountability, and restore public trust. I remember Councilman Piagentini saying, "I don't know anybody here that does not want to see further reforms related to how we lead and manage our LMPD." I remember Councilman Fox saying that we shouldn't perceive a yes vote as a blind eye to reforms that are much needed. I remember Councilman Reed saying that we all know that reforms need to happen. I remember Councilwoman George saying that she was concerned about several sections of the contract, particularly within Article 17. I remember Councilman Blackwell saying that there is a need for change in terms of our culture. And lastly, I remember Councilman Winkler saying that if he had control over the terms of this agreement, this isn't the contract that he would write. We are aware that you all don't have the power to determine what goes into the contract. However, we also know that you do have the power to be bold, to vote no, and to send it back until community demands for accountability and transparency have been met. Before I finish my statement, I want to express how devastating it was as a Black woman to watch every single Black council member vote no on the FOP contract last fall, while 16 of their counterparts voted yes. These 16 council members rationalized their decision by saying that they were voting yes because they had listened to the needs of the LMPD and wanted to support police through fair wages. Well, I am here to offer a reminder that the LMPD are not the only community members you represent. There are marginalized people all over this community who have been organizing, mobilizing, and pleading with their Metro Council members to listen to us and to use the power we have bestowed upon you to represent our voices and our experiences as well. Just as we did last fall, we are back, asking that this committee and that the council as a whole vote no on any CBA that calls for an increase in officer pay and benefits without addressing the many provisions that create barriers to effective misconduct investigations and other measures to promote accountability and transparency in policing. We hope that you will stick by your commitments you made last fall to represent the entire community. Be bold, vote no, and send it back.
Celine, thank you for your eloquent description and your research. Your one word I would say would be accountability, and I heard that specifically around transparency and reform. I do want to make a note that we were joined in chambers by our president, David James. Thank you for joining us, and we hear you. Rhonda Mathis. And I can't be formal with this one, y'all. This is my mama, Rhonda.
My name is Rhonda Mathis, a 40-year-plus resident of West Louisville of District 5. A step in the right direction is to be bold and vote no and send the contract back. Historical wage hike will not address the root problems with LMPD. Ground rules should not be set in stone. The mayor wants to gain public trust, be more transparent with negotiations behind closed doors, mandate that Metro Council ratify all police contracts and all police contracts extensions so the process cannot be held in secret by the mayor and FOP. Stop requiring the city to pay for officers' misconduct, as our tax dollars should not go towards legal fees, settlements, and etc. Clarify to ensure that all unjustified use of force is a forcible offense to fire. I just named a few, and it bears repeating. Those are some of the ones who have already been stated, but some would need to be stated again. You are hearing voices from the community. For you, as our elected officials, to take a stand and send it back and address issues raised by the community before signing off on it. I am here today as a citizen, as an active community member of this community, asking you to take a stand for those that have elected you and to serve as our council representative. Now is the time for change. Vote no and send it back.
Thank you, Mama Rhonda. And your one word I heard is community, but specifically community engagement and support and hearing those voices. So we hear you and thank you. Destiny Piet? Destiny?
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. My name is Destiny, and I only claim Breeway in this city. Today, I urge you to vote no. This contract is wholly unacceptable, and you must send it back. For 2 sessions, you have opened the floor to concerned citizens and heard their specific reasoning as to why they likewise ask you to vote no. Your constituents have asked you to be bold and send the contract back based on multiple articles and subsections, all valid points, completely picked apart and easy to understand. We've heard from a financial analyst who broke these figures down and all but called this contract an atrocity. But I'm here today to question the blind trust that some of you have in an organization that is obviously infiltrated by criminals. Be there no transparency, accurate and complete record keeping, or community involvement, you allow an organization to go unchecked that has proven time and time again that they cannot be trusted. At this point, how will we prevent repeat offenses, such as pedophiles being on the Explorer program, or sexually aggressive officers from working nights in bars around women? How will women like Breonna Taylor sleep safely at bed at night in their homes? Because who else uses a military-grade vehicle to ram an Army veteran into a building and arrest him on frivolous charges? Who else aims and shoots a mainstream media reporter in the face while standing on a sidewalk? And who in the hell throws slushies at houseless individuals completely unprovoked? No one else but LMPD. Let me remind you, I'm glad we could get you into a little something while we were here, are the words spoken by the very men this contract seeks to protect. They were spoken to the National Guard immediately after another man was murdered in his own business. Now you say his name, David McAtee. A rubber stamp yes vote on this contract will only protect the most dangerous criminals in this city, those that you're asking us to trust, but I just can't do that. Give your constituents hope that not all is lost and do not allow the last 10 years to repeat themselves. Vote no. You really have no other option. We will keep going.
Thank you, Destiny. That was eloquent and well said. The one word I heard resoundingly was trust and the lack of it. So we hear you. Sadiqa Reynolds, and I know this one to you all, it's not formal, but the CEO of the Louisville Urban League, Sadiqa Reynolds.
Councilwoman Dorsey, thank you so much for the opportunity, and to all the council members, we want to thank you. I just want to say that at a time when public trust is so low, this is really not the time for this contract to be supported. We do need to send it back, and we are asking you to vote no. You do need to listen to this community. We have spent more than a year in the streets in this city in ways that I don't think most leaders really understood that this city ever would. I don't think we ever thought we would live through what we have lived through. And we did it because people have been pushed to the edge. Before that happened, I begged city leaders not to allow people to be pushed to the edge. They didn't listen. You get what you get. We got what we got. We have survived this, but we have not all survived it. We've lost Breonna. We've lost David McAtee. We've lost others. It matters what is in this contract. It matters that police would get a raise and not have accountability listed out. It matters that the other part of the contract is not done being negotiated yet, and we don't know what it's going to say. It matters that we don't see the reforms that this community has communicated to council and to the office of the mayor. It matters. I am begging you to pull back, to vote no on this. Go back, look at that contract, and make sure that we are doing everything that we can to protect this community and also the good officers, because they don't need not to be protected. And I think that's really important. I don't think anyone is saying, let me just speak for myself and for the Urban League and what we're hearing from the community members who come through our doors. We expect accountability for police misconduct. The idea that there would be nothing in this contract that would allow those misconduct records to stay in the file, that they would be eliminated after 2 years, is completely unacceptable, particularly given all of the misconduct that we have seen across the country. So I haven't heard anyone get up here and tell you that they're not going to support this unless they see qualified immunity gone. We're not even having that conversation with you. No one that I have heard, and I have been listening online, no one has asked you for anything that is outside of the realm of possibility. If we want to be the city that we are supposed to be, if this is really a city of compassion, if we are really about possibilities, then we need to lead the country in reform. And this contract doesn't do it. It falls short in many ways. And on behalf of the Louisville Urban League and the 20,000 people who come into our facility on an annual basis, on behalf of the board and everyone else that we represent, I ask you to vote no. Please vote no on this contract. It matters. And I say to you all publicly what I have said before privately. Do not continue to push people to their limits. You have not seen them yet. I do not even understand what this community is capable of, but I certainly did predict the stamina that we had when Breonna Taylor was killed, and I trust that you will make sure that that does not happen again. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam CEO Reynolds. And we heard you resoundingly with accountability, specifically around misconduct and with emphasis around hearing and supporting and protecting the community. So we thank you, Madam CEO Reynolds. Greg Tishner. Greg Tishner.
Good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me to speak on the FOP contracts. My name is Greg Titchener. I live in District 6. I'm here to ask you to be bold, to vote no, and to send it back. Our community, like many others across the nation, has seen a call to hold police accountable for mistakes made on the job. Defunding the police is a very real and necessary examination that has to happen if our community is to heal. Metro Council cannot remain tone deaf to the calls from the Louisville community to develop proactive crime prevention measures aside from armed uniformed officers incarcerating people living on the edge right and left. I'm not here to challenge the honor and integrity of all those who have chosen law enforcement as a profession. I am here to suggest that the current criminal justice system is an example of systemic racism that must be corrected if we are to build a loving, compassionate Louisville community that we all deserve. Few who have studied the issue of criminal justice seriously would argue that crime isn't largely driven by a wealth gap. When a large population of citizens, disproportionately people of color, are left to live paycheck to paycheck to keep a home over their heads or food on the table, this is the real driver of crime, not the number of police on the force. I am one of the thousands of citizens out in the past year and a half demanding justice for Breonna Taylor. I saw the police tear gas a crowd filled with children well before a scheduled curfew in the name of public safety. I saw dozens of protesters complain about the loss of circulation to their hands, from zip ties being put on them excessively tight. I saw the news report a black lawmaker was trying to burn down the library. I saw police target the live streamers documenting events in what appears to be a dangerous effort to promote a false narrative of what is really happening. This is not behavior of a program that deserves more funding. Like global warming, policing problems are not going to go away by pretending we're not there. They are not there. We cannot move forward in good faith by promoting qualified immunity, preventing any police layoffs, having closed meetings to discuss the contract, and pretending we don't have a problem in the criminal justice system. Metro Council, it is time to start discussing alternatives to policing, like after-school programs for our youth. It's a moral imperative. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And I heard you. And the one thing that I heard from you was a sense of community, community being the one word, and making sure that we use the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and really address some of the root cause issues and make investments there. Thank you. DeMontez Shepard. DeMontez Shepard.
I am DeMontez Shepard of Lionheart from the Du Bois Academy, and I say that they should send it back and vote no. I say that because, one, cops have for many years used excessive force on the people they're supposed to be protecting. How are you gonna protect me when you're killing me and my people? Cops were trained to not be biased against skin color, not be biased against sexuality and personal choices. They don't show that. When a cop goes to do a report or goes to do anything of that matter, goes to handle business, it's a black male. He's white, he's okay. They never look at just the situation. It's always something about race. Another thing, they have so much riot gear, but according to Pew researchers, only 30% of Americans own a gun. They have riot gear, while most Americans aren't even dangerous. They just see us as dangerous because of what they want to see. They don't see what we actually are. They don't see the fact that we're human just like them. They have more power over us, and that's why they treat us this way. I think cops, the cops who are doing what they're supposed to do should keep their job and be paid more than what they're getting paid. They're risking their lives, as they should. But the dirty cops who somehow never get caught, they do. They investigate situations, and then somehow they go unsolved. My cousin, he was murdered, and a lot of people know who did it, and it was very obvious as to who did it. But the case went unsolved 4 years ago, and it still roams in my head how they haven't solved it. Saturday was his birthday, and the whole time I just had to relive the fact that he died right down the street from where I go to school. He died down the street from where I sleep. It's not only him, it's everyone that looks like him. Racial profiling is a thing. Just because you're black and your hair may look different than others, you could be seen as different. Send it back.
DeMontez, first I want to say I'm extremely proud of you. And if you don't, I'm gonna go off. How old are you, Demontez? You're 14. Your mother and your family should be extremely proud. Thank you for using your voice. And your one word, Demontez, I put down humanity. And thank you for elevating that in this space. Christiana Miller.
It's Christina Miller.
Christina. Okay.
Yeah, but I like that though. That was
I'll put a little salt and pepper on anything. Thank you for saying it correctly for us, and feel free to proceed.
Yeah, President James, Councilwoman Dorsey, and all of the Metro Council, first of all, thank you for giving us time to speak today, even though I do think that that is our basic inalienable right, is to speak today. I mean, I'm emotional still, even just watching a young man come up here and have to portray his trauma, and not just his trauma, but the trauma that we continue to hear by our citizens on behalf of the men and women who are sworn to protect us when they do not. I had fully came to with a prepared statement, but with the new kind of update to the contract, this is what I do have to say about it. Again, in any position or job that you're going into with an individual or group and their contract, if they were to cause harm, have any misconduct, they would be looked at a risk and a liability. You wouldn't go into a contract with them to begin with, let alone if you did, you would then make sure that that contract had everything in place to ensure the safety of your clients and your employees. Neither of these contracts do, and I understand that we don't know what the new contract will come back, but I'm here to tell y'all we all know what that contract is going to say. It is going to have on there higher pay, and even without anything to have consequence to these officers involved. As someone who has worked with child survivors of trauma for over a decade, I can tell you right now that never in my time that I have dealt with any sort of aggressive behavior, whether it be having a knife pulled out on me or whatever the case may be, none of my children have ever had any harm caused back to them, and I was always able to keep them safe. We are asking for the same basic expectation from our officers, and yet they continue time and time again to show us evidence of misconduct, corruption, and abuse. We have that evidence here from firsthand knowledge. Even myself, I have experienced it over the past summer. By having two grown men grab me, one on each arm, and pull me out in the street, and then falsely charge me with obstructing a roadway that is still going to be on my record to this day. But that pales in comparison, right, to the murder of Breonna Taylor, the murder of David McAtee, and all we are asking is the right to safety, and that's all we have the right to. And what these contracts show is that LMPD and the FOP, quite frankly, want to continue to move on and like business as usual, that they have not learned their lesson, and it is up to this Metro Council to hold them accountable, because you all want to talk about healing and coming together right as a community, but there can be no healing without accountability, and there can be no accountability without action by this council by voting no to these contracts and meeting the demands set forth by the 490 Project. We demand that these changes happen now and do not wait again for another decade or more to do this, so that we can ensure public health and reduce wealth inequality in our city. Again, I want to remind you all, you serve the community, not FOP and LMPD.
Thank you, Christina. And again, I would say your one word was around accountability, but specifically I heard protect and serve is protecting and serving this community. Thank you. Jeffrey Compton. Jeffrey Compton. Jeff, if you, I think we can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm Jeff Compton. I currently live in District 6.
Proceed, Jeff.
Okay. President James, council members, thank you for this opportunity to speak regarding for the FOP CBA. I live in District 6, and I'm here to ask you guys to vote boldly no. While these contracts and negotiations are in process and a few positive changes, that this is not enough. These contracts still fail to present serious challenges that officers have, such as misconduct, corruption, abuse of authority. Meanwhile, our communities are still suffering. So we're just asking you to be bold and say no, send it back. Let's demand these changes now and not wait another decade so we can see what ensures public health really looks like and what our inequality of our city really looks like. True story. My nephew is 14 years old. Him and his friends, his dad has been incarcerated for over 14 years. He has never got to spend a day outside of jail with his son, which is my nephew's father, because of the miscarriage of the judicial system. So I'm asking you all to please boldly vote no, send it back, and come back with something else. Let's decide on other ways to spend this money, such as public health, such as mental health, such as better qualities in schools. But we cannot keep funding this police system who is continuously beating Black people, the horrible corruption. We cannot keep spending our tax dollars on this horrible corruption that we have in this system. And that's it.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And I heard two things from you, but the one word would be accountability. But specifically, what I heard was around making sure that we hold officers accountable for conduct and making sure that we get to root causes with our allocations. So thank you, Jeffrey. Vashti Proctor. Vashti Proctor. Vashti? Last call for Vashti Proctor. Sam Dorr. Thank you, Sam.
Good afternoon. I'm here today as a resident of District 3 to ask you all to do your jobs in serving those of us who elected you to make decisions in our best interest. As a resident of the West End, I have watched my community ask for stores and schools, but instead we gain shot spotters and patrol cars while losing more and more faith in our city leaders to do anything beyond line their own pockets at the expense of their constituents. It has been 555 days since Breonna Taylor was murdered. Still, there has been no progress made to hold those responsible for her death accountable. There has been no justice served to the members of this community who were assaulted, unjustly arrested, and stripped of their rights to voice their dissent by LMPD during the resulting protests of 2020. On more than one occasion last year, I witnessed our police force attack their own citizens, without regard for anyone's safety and for absolutely no reason other than to silence and intimidate those who would dare disagree with their abusive tactics. LMPD as a whole has continued to show us that they are either incapable or unwilling to hold themselves to their own standards of the law, and they cannot protect their citizens without prejudice. It is clear that LMPD cannot be trusted to self-report or self-discipline its officers, and these contracts still fall short in dealing with officer misconduct and abuse while lathering the department with protections and funding. It is for these reasons that I'm asking this council to send back this contract until the following changes are made. Stop erasing police misconduct records and ensure that all unjustified use of force is a fireable offense, and that any resulting settlements are not paid with taxpayer money. Add community leaders to the city's negotiation team and renegotiate to permit the public and free media access to these hearings to provide transparency and accountability to the community. Stop providing riot gear for our police force to unjustly use against its citizens that it is pledged to protect, and reroute that funding to communities in need for outreach and investment to ensure our most at-risk neighborhoods have the resources they need to thrive without fear of those charged with protecting them. Now is the time to be bold. We as citizens are tired of asking nicely. Stop the FOP, end qualified immunity, and say her name.
Thank you, Sam. And again, resoundingly and overwhelmingly accountability, but specifically, we heard you on standards and being able to foster trust. Thank you, Sam, for using your voice. Lisa or Lisa? Lisa? Last call if you're in the hallway. Lisa. Or a Liza. I'm going to spell this, Liza. All right. Moving forward, is it Jayus? Come forward. Thank you. Please say your full name for the record and proceed.
My name is Jayus Rashid. Ooh. Okay. My name is Jayus Rashid, and of the Mighty Shades of Ebony, and I'm going to tell you a story of my perspective while watching the videos of what was happening in 2020 and on the news. When I was 12, I was watching a video about what police were doing to peaceful protesters all across the U.S. I saw tear gas, rubber bullets, police cars ramming into people, smoke bombs, police assaulting people, spraying mace in eyes, a man making a literal horse run over a woman, hurting reporters and breaking their equipment, violently detaining innocents, and for what? The First Amendment supposedly gives you the right to free speech and to gather peacefully without interference, unless there is a chance in being a riot. And these clips I'm seeing, there is no chance of being a riot. A little girl got maced in the eyes. Rioters and thugs are some of the many words that they use to describe peaceful protesters. But when Trump supporters storm the Capitol and out so many lives in dangers, it's protesters, when really it should be terrorists and rioters. When I watched those clips of them storming the Capitol, I laughed out loud. They look so idiotic. Even off-duty police were there. The same people who protect us are siding with the terrorists. How am I supposed to look at that as a 12-year-old watching the heroes of this nation beating people like me and taking funds from the library to put towards their funds? My education is at risk. Were those smoke bombs, rubber bullets, mace, and batons being used for? I'm going to end this with saying, if you provide riot gear, at least use it on the right people. And actually, I'm not going to end this because I have a minute left. Anyways, I see people with signs up saying, "Oh yes, this is a very good law." No, it is not. No, it is not, and that's what I'll be ending. Oh, say no and send it back.
Thank you, Jayus. Jayus, I'm going to ask you, you said when you were 12, how old are you? You are a very well-spoken young lady, and I really, really appreciate your comments. You are the future of the city. Continue moving forward. Jayus, the one word I would hear you say again is accountability and fostering trust. Is this Joseph?
Yes.
Joseph McNeely. Thank you, Joseph. Please say your name again for the record and proceed.
I am Joseph Page of Lionheart, and I reside in District 13. I'm here to ask you to be bold, vote no, and send it back. While these contracts in the negotiation process in few positive changes, that they are not enough. These contracts still fail to present a serious challenge to officer misconduct, corruption, and abuse of community which the LMPD is tasked with serving. And of course, that doesn't mean that the good cops who are supposed to be there when I'm scared for my life because people are making threats to hurt me physically and mentally based off of my beliefs and me wanting to stand up against this stuff. But you don't get, for the bad ones, you don't get rewarded for bad behavior. So you're asking for a raise when black people just like me are killed, like Tamir Rice. He was beaten half to death by whites and nothing was done about it. But so, when the public has to fight for incremental changes to police contracts simply to address serious police misconduct, time, energy, and expertise that could be spent working on solutions are lost. So I'm asking you to be bold, vote no, and send it back. Let's demand these changes now and not wait another decade to do this so that we can ensure public health and reduce wealth and inequality in our city. Let's ensure that your job to protect and serve gets done before each and every one of you police that want a raise for all of the bad stuff that you've done gets done before and after you put on the badge. If we as a city, or they say that we as a people lead by example, but if we as a city don't get better, then how are our babies gonna know how to follow with love and not hate? How is America gonna know how to follow and do the right thing as a country if they can't see it done anywhere? So when people tell you that you would be better off as a gangster or a criminal or a corrupt person, those are the most important times when you have to be bold, vote no, and send it back so that you can get a better change for the future. So when you do that, you inspire hope over hatred. Then you establish trust over fear. Then you deliver justice and righteousness over injustice and enslavement. Because when you leave this meet, you might go home to your one-bedroom apartment and to your families and think about what I just said today and think, either A, am I killing the people of the future, or B, did I just make a change? By being bold, voting no, and sending it back.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you for using your voice. I see a plethora of young people. Joseph, how old are you for the public? 14 years old. Thank you. Very bold. Joseph, I heard you talk about accountability, but your one word I would use would be reform. Thank you. Malachi? Malachi, would you state your name for the record and then proceed?
I am Malachi Ibn Muhammad of Lionheart, and I reside in District 26. And I am here to ask you to be bold and vote no. One of the LMPD's values is to have respect for all people, no matter their race, gender, background, or sexual orientation. So why? So if an officer isn't respectful to all people, why should that officer be paid more? Why should an officer be paid more for not upholding that value? I was taught from an early childhood that bad behavior never deserves a good reward. So why should adults be getting paid more, a good incentive or good reward, for bad behavior like beating innocent people? If an employee in a regular workplace was being violent towards other employees, they wouldn't be getting paid more. They wouldn't get a raise. So why is it different with officers? In fact, it should be more strict because they are the ones that are protecting and serving on the field in public. So the question I have is, where is this money really going to come from? It's not going to be taken out of something like hospitals because those are necessities. Are they going to be taken out of schools, out of taxes? And if it's taxes, why should the community's hard work be giving to police that are beating those same people in the community? And just to use school as an analogy, officers shouldn't be getting an A-level reward if they're getting C or D-level work. Police officers are simply not being held accountable for their actions, but they want to be paid more. They can ignore calls or send little help from people that are dying in their own homes, but let an angry black woman be going crazy at a store. Then you'll have dozens of cars and dozens of officers ready at that scene in under 5 minutes to apprehend them with brute force. LMPD shouldn't be paid more for shooting up someone's home for the suspicion of a loved one. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, say her name. Thank you. Be bold, vote no, and send it back.
Thank you, Malachi. Malachi, again, you know what my famous question is going to be. How old are you? 14 years old. We appreciate, we value, and we are depending on you continuing to use your voice. Thank you. Your one word would be reform, Malachi. Kim Summers. Kim, would you state your name for the record and proceed?
Thank you, council members. We appreciate this opportunity to address a system that's broken. I was front line with my black brothers and sisters during the Breonna Taylor protest. I was one of a handful of white people that were there. And I got educated. I thought I was woke. But I realized real soon that I had a lot to learn as a white woman. And I look back here at these signs here and I'm reading pound crime. And I'm saying, I'm going to rename your sign, pound crime within the police department. Handcuff criminals. Handcuff criminals. Handcuff the LMPD. So I'm watching these signs.
Excuse me, 1 second. Excuse me, please pause. Madam Clerk, please stop the time. We will not attack each other. We are attacking systems and problems and issues, not people. If that is done again, you will be escorted out of chambers. Excuse me, sir, we can agree to, sir, I am asking you, sir, I am asking you. I hear you. You had your time, man, and it goes for everyone. Sir, all due respect, I am asking you for the last time. Please be seated. I hear you. We will not, no one will address anyone. We are addressing systems and problems. We are not attacking people. Thank you. Kim, would you like to restart your time?
Yes.
And we will not address anyone in the public or council members. You will be escorted out. I will ask President James to go back into his formal mode, and I will have you escorted out. We will not attack anyone. It is not acceptable. Sir, no, this is not the time. This is a public hearing. You did have time. And if you have something to say, we can address it offline at the end, but this is not the venue. So I will hear you at the end. Audience, I can handle it. I got it. Madam Clerk, can we restart the clock?
Yes, Madam Chair, restarting now.
Kim, please restart.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Again, my name is Kim Summers. I'm in District 26, and I love the signs that read Stop the Crime Wave. I love signs that say handcuff criminals. I love signs that say pound crime, because all of those things should be done to the FOP and LMPD officers. I was on the front line of the Breonna Taylor protests as a white woman and saw things that I was shocked to see. I thought I was woke. Well, let me tell you what. I saw cops taunting people, stirring up trouble to make themselves look needed. I saw police officers criminalizing houseless people. I saw police officers criminalizing people that were addicted to substances. I saw police officers criminalizing people for their poor mental health. I say if you're going to protect and serve, we need to reallocate funds and give them to these systems, get to the root cause issues. It's no accident that only black people have spoken this evening against, and it's white people that are standing here saying for. That's no accident. That is a reflection of the system we live in. It is a racist system. And did you know, white people, did you know that police began as slave patrols? Did you know that? That culture is alive and well today. I've seen it with my own white lady eyes. So I'm saying, white people, in general, just because it's not happening to you does not mean it's not happening. And I say, black people are traumatized. And we need to treat the trauma. We need to address the cause, not the effect. That's the brokenness of this system. We keep pouring money on the effect instead of addressing the root cause. Desperate people do desperate things. Address the root cause. Reallocate funds and address houselessness, substance abuse, mental health, and watch crime go way down. Watch it happen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kim. Your one word is more so a phrase, root cause, and I thank you for elevating that. Eddie Davis. Eddie Davis. And Eddie, as you were coming, this is another Louisville icon regarding photography and documenting our city's history. Eddie, we thank you for your service and gift to this city. Thank you.
I'm Eddie Davis. I'm from District 1. I'm a lifelong resident of West Louisville. And I wanted to make a few comments and a few suggestions. One of them is we shouldn't send the contract back without sending the FOP a counter proposal. Within that counter proposal, we should have a department within the police department for police social workers. I don't remember that coming up in the contract. Also, I am for higher pay for higher qualified police officers. Some of the police officers that we have on the force are not qualified to be on the force. They don't have the educational background. I can't see why we can't get more police officers trained from the Southern Police Institute. We should not allow people that don't have the proper education background or mental disposition. I don't see where in the proposal where there's any testing to do research on people's mental disposition before you give them a badge or a gun. And I've been through this before, and with the late, great Reverend Coleman, and that's why he created this brochure that says that we should incorporate the city of West Louisville and create our own police department. Well, the reason that was set up was during that period of time 20 years ago, there was so much police abuse, we figured that why can't the West End have its own police department like St. Matthews and Shively? They have two police departments. They also have their own city council. Where is black people's city council? We don't have a city council. No taxation without equal representation. And it is the responsibility of Metro government to run the police department, TARC, the fire department, the library, and if you can't run it, then we need to get another Metro council that can. This one ain't doing the job. You know, who runs Metro Council? Mostly white, East End, bourgeois, don't care nothing about black people, so why would I want to be associated with them? I'm for a separate city for West Louisville. I think we should divorce Louisville. What do we need you for? To steal the generational wealth through gentrification, using the police department for gentrification? What was Breonna Taylor about? Justification. The use of the police department for justification. For who? The rich, the white, and the privileged.
Thank you, Eddie, for your words. And your one word would be incorporation. I really heard overwhelmingly the incorporation of West Louisville, which would become a separate taxing base and essentially a small city. So that is what I heard. Thank you, Eddie, for your voice. Alicia Thorne. Alicia Thorne.
Hi, my name's Alicia Thorne and I reside in District 14. As citizens of the Louisville Metro, we need to realize when enough is enough. When I look at Louisville, all I see is bad. We went downtown to fight for our sister who was killed by the police who were made to keep us safe. Does that make sense? Why give a raise to police officers when they don't deserve it? Last time I checked, you give a raise to the people that have done the best they could to help those around you. But with the police, they haven't shown me, as a citizen of Louisville, that they deserve a raise. I'm gonna say one of my lines from a song that I wrote in Mighty Shades of Ebony. And it states, "Got me begging on my knees for my skin to be unwitnessed, but I should be proud it holds the righteous and the richest." When I think of, when writing this, I was thinking about the time before the Harlem Renaissance when African Americans had to wear a mask to cover up who they truly were, because if they expressed themselves, they knew that what was at the end was not good. If you think about it, nothing has really changed. When me and my uncle got pulled over, I was scared because of everything that has happened. I don't want to have my hands on the dash just to let them see my hands so I don't get shot. I don't want to worry if my hands are in my pocket. I don't want to have to tell the officer every step I make because I'm scared, and if I don't, then one wrong move and I'm gone just like the others. I hate the fact that because I'm black that I have to pretend to be who I'm not. Thank you.
Alicia, thank you. Alicia, are you a student? Yes. If you don't mind me asking, how old are you, young lady? 14. I hope the public sees this amazing stance of our young people using their voice. People say they are the future, but they are really now. Young people, I am proud of you. Kathleen Parks. Kathleen Parks. Resident of District 3. Kathleen
Yes,
Parks.
District 3.
Kathleen,
Yes,
proceed.
good evening, Councilwoman, and my friend Keisha Dorsey. It's indeed an honor and a privilege to be here this evening to present before the councils. I am president of the National Action Network as well as County Commissioner District 3 that I represent. And I want to share with you the National Action Network's perspective on what needs to happen as part of this contract. First of all, I want to say, vote no to this contract and vote no boldly. I want to commend the young voices that have come in to the chambers this evening and so passionately voice their concerns and their fears regarding their safety and the safety of their brothers and sisters and neighbors in their communities and fellow students in their schools that they face every day. The reason and the root causes, as the white woman that spoke earlier was pointing to, and I want to go into more detail with that. And again, we are not attacking persons, but systems and the problems, and they are systemic. First of all, the root cause is the after effects of slavery and Jim Crow practices, not only in Louisville, Kentucky, the Commonwealth, but America. The lack of understanding and comprehension of our history in America that's not being taught in the schools, the colleges, or the universities. Louisville Metro Police Department, like many police departments across this nation, have systemic racist practices buried within the framework of their policies and procedures. Louisville, Kentucky will always have to bear historically the brunt of Breonna Taylor's death that was preventable. First of all, again, the language needs to be changed around who we are. We are not minorities. We are not blacks. We are not colored. We are not Negroes. And we are not African Americans. We are not immigrants. We are descendants of American slaves. More funding for education and training needs to be conducted throughout the department. This area of slave history education should take place through all sectors of the Louisville Metro Police Department, i.e., starting with the chief, her lieutenants, sergeants, officers, administrative staff, all the way down to the dispatchers and also first responders need to be trained as to how to understand the culture of descendants of American slaves and other cultures for that matter, to understand how to interact with each person that is detained at a traffic stop, walking down the street.
Kathleen,
like
we have
Elijah
reached the
McClain.
3-minute mark.
All right. Well, no, more training, more funding needs to be put into the training for the officers. Otherwise,
you.
I don't see any need for a pay.
Thank you. And Kathleen, I would put your one word as reform, and we appreciate you using your voice and dedicating your life really to this service. We appreciate you. Tiffany Diaz. Tiffany, you are on if you want to come off mute.
Hello.
Test, we hear you.
Okay.
Tiffany, we will let you know when you are at the 3-minute mark. Please feel free to proceed.
Madam Chairwoman and other council members, I am Tiffany Diaz, and I reside in 40299. I am here to ask you to be bold and to vote no, not to make the Louisville Police Department the highest paid police department in the state. How can that be our goal when we are the lowest performing, we have one of the lowest rates for people in police work that make its citizens feel comfortable. The police department is not operating at a higher level of performance and therefore do not deserve a higher pay with less accountability. I have personally witnessed friends punched in the face by LMPD. I have personally witnessed a woman pulled out of a car and dragged and arrested as a passenger in a vehicle during a pop-up march. Why pay more for a terrible job done? If any of the Metro Council members raped a child, had child porn on their computers, or hit women and children, in 2 years, would that disappear? I think not. So why, as a police officer that is being held to the highest esteem to protect and to serve, why are we trying to allow them to have their problems, their abuse of people erased after 2 years? Why is there no continuity between officers that abuse women and children and then come to the LMPD and then leave the LMPD and go to other smaller police departments? Where is the continuity within the police department that says you've done an excellent job, so you deserve a 9% raise? It simply isn't there. We are at a time in our country where defunding the police and saying no to these ridiculous contracts is a very real thing. Community policing, community accountability for the people that pay these salaries to the police department. And I will close by saying, not only do we need to remember to say her name, we need to say his name and remember all the victims and have a moment of silence for them, for all of the victims of police brutality, whether they are alive or have lost their lives in the fight. Thank you.
Tiffany, thank you for your words. We hear you. And the one word I got out of what you said was reform. So thank you. Rachel Hardy. Rachel, test for me so that we can hear you.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please feel free to
Okay.
proceed.
Chairwoman Dorsey and members of the Labor and Development Committee, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I am Rachel Hardy and I reside in District 9. Today, I am asking that you vote not to recommend the captain lieutenant's contract proposal. Be bold and set the stage to send it back for renegotiations under terms more favorable to the community. The first step to doing this is voting against recommending it to the full council. Now, because of the recent developments of this afternoon, and because you have already heard from so many members of the community about specific articles in the contract that need to be changed, and parts of the contract process that need to be changed, I'm going to instead spend my time talking to you about two closely related issues. First, I would like to draw yours and the public's attention to the outrageous, elite, bipartisan support that police enjoy in Louisville. Support that is wildly out of step with the opinions of regular people, like myself and others who have already spoken. Councilman President David James told the Courier-Journal in August that the pay raises for police do not go far enough, despite the fact that they are the largest in department history. The FOP officers cited Mr. James in their statement today after they chose to vote no. This is just one recent example of the profound disconnect in the city between elected officials, regardless of political party, and community members. It is past time for us to vote out everyone in Metro government, Democrat or Republican, who sees policing as the only possible solution to community safety. The scales have fallen from our eyes. It should no longer be acceptable for our elected officials to pretend to comfort police brutality victims with one hand while giving the FOP even more funding with the other. You have to choose between these two realities. Second, I would like to address the matter of the DOJ pattern and practice investigation. Contrary to some widely circulating beliefs, the federal government is not coming to save us. Any consent decree that is reached with the DOJ will not be able to subvert the FOP contract as a matter of law. For better or worse, any substantial and long-lasting changes to policing in Louisville will have to be done at the community level, with political will from local elected officials, and with community input. In sum, I'm asking you as a committee to vote against recommending the captain and lieutenant's contract. I'm asking the community to no longer accept elected officials who treat us with disrespect while kowtowing to the FOP as if the 800-odd officers on the force are their only constituents. I am also begging us all to remember that the DOJ does not have the political will to create real change in Louisville. For that, we must rely on ourselves, our community, and those we choose to elect. Also, I added this as I watched this unfold a few minutes ago. What is the point of sitting on this committee if you are just going to take a phone call while a Black youth gives their impassioned input? Councilman Kevin Triplett.
Excuse me, ma'am, please cut the feed. Cut the feed.
Really sensitive.
Please let it be known, and I have stated this, we will not attack people. If a council member, and I'm going to go very heartfelt and personal. There are people who left funerals, people who have had children. My mother is sick, and if she calls me, I will step away and answer the phone. Please understand that this council has family and personal circumstances, and they serve. This will be a matter of perspective, and we will not attack people for not knowing what their personal circumstances are. I sat in my office and I ate before I came in here because COVID is real. Some people may have said something about that. We will not attack. And I made that very clear. All right, we are at the very last person. I do want to recap and level state and say, I appreciate every single person's time. I took the time to hear and listen, and each and every council member has taken that time. We heard you. Overwhelmingly, accountability and reform. The council and I will continue to talk to the administration, and we will do what we need to do on this side, and when it gets over here, we will continue that debate rigorously. We will continue to have conversations. I ask that you continue to reach out to your council members, but also reach out to your mayor. Reach out to your other elected
Reach out to your other elected leaders. And I have heard time and time again that the mayor has not given you feedback. You make sure that you hold your next mayor accountable for that feedback. Do you all hear me? You make sure that you hold them accountable for that. I thank you for your time. I want to thank each and every council member who has taken out of their day. Monday is not a normal day for council, so members have had to take off work, leave early, and adjust calendars, and I appreciate you as the public for doing the same. We thank you for giving us your time, and council members, I thank you for taking the time to hear the public, and we will continue this debate. We will move together as one city, and we will be stronger because of this. We all have the same goals. We just have varying perspectives about how to get there. But today, this Metro Council heard you. So thank you for your time. This public hearing is adjourned.
She actually lives down the street Those promotions will continue to be done. We're all still. I've been hurt since I began protesting last year. I'm still traumatized. I will always be traumatized until we can find a system.
Do you have enough light again? We can turn it back on if you need to. It was upstairs. Or downstairs. Sorry.